In this episode, we discuss how to deal with challenges. We talk about how a one size fits all approach will never work, and instead shift the focus into understanding yourself. We look at the role desire and fear plays, and also give you some tips and tricks for managing.
Let's talk about what intuition really is.
Let's look at all the places intuition and ego show up in your life.
Let's share honestly.
Let's do the research.
I'm Jamie Hayhurst.
I'm Heather Wood.
This is the Intuitive Girls Guide.
Hey, Jay.
Hey.
I thought we'd talk about facing challenges today.
Okay.
We get asked about this a lot.
Yeah.
I just get asked to speak on this topic.
You did.
So I thought it would be fun to talk about it on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But in true you and I fashion, it's a tough topic to think of how to say to someone, here's how to deal with a challenge.
Right.
Because everyone's not the same and every situation's not the same.
So 10-step plan.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what the people want. They
They-
want
well-
me to say, here are the 10 things to do when you're being challenged by life.
Well, it's easy to sell that.
It is.
It's easy to go through a list like that, but 9 times out of 10, they're not all going to apply to you. Or
No, and I think
No.
that it ends up bringing in a lot of shame and a lot of bad feelings about yourself if you go to try to follow someone else's way of dealing and it doesn't apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate that. But what I hope will come from this episode is some triggers for people to talk about and find here's a suggestion. Let's give you some tips to find how you best deal.
Yes.
That's my hope for this.
Yep.
So there is not a 10-step program, but if you've ever listened to this podcast before, that's not a surprise to
No,
you.
we'll give you some starting points.
And if you happen to be watching us, we accidentally dress like Christmas.
Yes.
If you're watching a
couple
video-
months late. Right. Yeah, we did.
This is March
Green
at
and
the
red.
time of recording, and we accidentally dress like Christmas.
Yeah.
Usually we accidentally coordinate. Perfect.
True.
Not that this isn't coordinating.
Well, for the wrong holiday.
Yeah, but maybe we need a
Mhm.
little holiday vibe. I don't know if you know this, Jamie, but there's a lot going on in the world right now.
Exactly. Yes.
So,
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's start by saying that everybody in the whole world completely deals differently with not just challenges, but with different kinds of challenges.
Right.
So I think we get sometimes I hear people say stuff like, oh, I'm really good in a tough situation, or I really struggle in hard situations, or I get
Right.
really anxious in tough situations. And I think you're doing yourself a big disservice by making blanket statements like that.
Agreed.
Because that's not true. There are certain ones that are hard for you, and there are certain ones that you probably excel at.
Exactly.
I will say, as somebody who, we're going to talk about certainty and variety later,
Mhm.
because those people who have certainty or variety as their main, because you always have one that's the big one, right?
True. Right.
If it's certainty, you deal with challenges way differently than if it's variety. And
Definitely.
if you tried to fit yourself into the wrong box, you're
Mhm.
setting yourself up for a disaster.
Yeah. There's also neurodiversities,
Yeah.
people with ADHD and
Yes.
trauma tend to be really good at
Yes.
really bad stresses and challenges, but the
Yes.
sort of daily challenges are
Yes.
too much.
Yes. So I know people who the idea of calling someone on the phone to
That's
order
me.
food or something
Right.
like that is paralyzing to them. But they could get up on stage and give a speech without breaking a sweat.
Yes.
And it's just the point being that depending on the kind of things you've been through in your life
Mhm.
and how your brain is programmed
Right.
is going to determine how you deal with challenges and which ones are easier and harder for you.
Right.
And as a certainty person, I spend a lot of time, and you can attest to this, Jamie, planning and overthinking everything so that it comes out the way I would like it to.
Right.
I like the control.
Hmm.
And that's really weird because I'm actually great in an emergency where I don't know what's going on.
True.
I handle that really well. I spent a childhood in those kinds of situations.
Mhm.
And I feel like I don't think that you are always planning,
No.
but I feel like you would do a lot of things to avoid being caught in a situation that you weren't prepared for.
Yes.
Yet you also excel in those situations. So I think it's just you got to check how you tell the story to yourself.
Right. Always.
Okay. So some challenges are also way more triggering than others. And those are
Mhm.
based on your traumas or experiences or bad things or good things that have happened to you in your life.
The vows you've created.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just because something is triggering
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you can't handle it well.
Right.
And just because other people view you as someone who's handling things well does not mean that your
That's easy.
system and your
Right.
nervous system is not being taxed and stressed by said
Agreed.
challenge.
100%.
So it's kind of a weird thing. I
Yeah.
think we're all good and bad at challenging situations.
Yeah.
No one is like, oh, they're really good in a tough situation. Well, which
Right.
kind?
Right, exactly.
And what do you mean really good? They're not
Right.
needing anything from you?
I mean, it's not easy for anybody or wouldn't be challenging,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly. Then there's also the factor, Jamie, of the state of your nervous system upon entering into a challenge.
True. True.
There have been times where something really small was just like not manageable to me.
Agreed.
And there have been times
Yep.
where really big things were something that I could very easily manage without a lot of stress.
Mhm.
And that had to do with the state of my nervous system at the time and
Right.
much less to do with what was going on in the
Around you,
challenge.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there's that too. And then the tools you have to manage the stress of a challenge.
Mhm.
I know that there's a lot of unspoken privilege to this element.
Definitely.
Like when you see, the people that we always talk about, Jamie, they're peddling the 10-step programs,
Mhm.
but they're also sort of shaming people for being stressed. Like you should always be in a state of complete
Oh,
zen
right.
all
Yeah.
the time, right?
Mhm.
Which is ridiculous and
Yeah.
not realistic or healthy. I really think we're missing out on the discussion of how privileged it is to have tools at your disposal to deal with stress.
Yes.
Not only the ability to have like supports and stuff, but to know what to do.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like somebody who is working 3 jobs, who is below the poverty line
Mhm.
income level, who has 3 children or 6 children, is a
Mhm.
single parent, you're going to tell me that, why aren't they just doing their breathing exercises? Like,
Well, right.
what are you talking about? Like,
Because the privilege is that your life affords you a more balanced central nervous system, like a
Yeah.
calmer nervous system. Like that's the privilege,
yeah, I think
you know.
even, I know like in our culture, in our country, especially in the United States, when people talk about exercising, it's always to be like, if you're a woman, to be like smaller. Like that must be the reason you're doing it, right? But actually, a reason that both you and I enjoy exercising. Spoiler alert: Jamie likes to exercise now. Just broke the
Sorta.
news.
Yes, it's true. This is true.
Well, she does it now.
Like an asterisk
Yeah.
attached to it.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
But both of us actually, I think, would list our top reason for exercising to have nothing to do with the size of our bodies
No.
and actually have to do with being regulated people.
And fighting people. I'm getting ready to fight Nazis in the street.
But you have to have a regulated baseline for a nervous system
Yes.
to go out and fight the Nazis. If you're overwhelmed by the stress of it, you're not going to be able to do it.
No,
So
right.
yes, do we like
No, I agree.
the muscles that come with
Yes.
it? Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, we do like that. Are there like physical
Mhm.
benefits that both of us are happy to gain from exercising? Yes, but actually I think the top reason that we would both state is for our central nervous systems.
Correct. I agree.
Okay.
Yep.
But we don't talk about that just to be small. And then
No.
there's the privilege of that. But really, the privilege of being able to even exercise to regulate your central nervous system is already a privilege not
Yeah.
afforded to most
The
people.
time of it, the money of it. I mean,
Yeah.
that not everyone has that in their lives.
Is that sometimes maybe you could create the time, when
Mhm.
people like shame people for like not
We all have
making
24
time.
hours in the day.
I hate when people do that. But like, what about what you have left in the tank?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
I know
Right.
my 24 hours are a lot easier than most people's 24 hours. So
Right.
it's like, you
Mhm.
gotta,
To be thoughtful.
I know. And
Just
I know
check
I'm going
yourself.
on and like prattling on about this, but I just really feel like it's an important thing to like sit with yourself for a minute and like give yourself a motherfucking break.
Well, that and like if you give yourself a break or give other people a break, if you're feeling a little judgmental about why is this so stressful for this person, maybe this thing would be easy for me, and why are they struggling with this challenge so much? Maybe it's because their 24 hours are different than yours, or their support system is different than yours, or their nervous system is different than yours. Like, not everything has to be a projection of what's easy for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the thing that people don't like about that
Mhm.
idea is that it's really hard to then like paint yourself as this guru, getting people to follow you,
Right.
and telling them to just do these,
Right.
like you always like to say, like drink the green smoothie and get up at
Yes,
4 a.m. or
morning.
whatever, which
Right.
is fine if that works for you. But
Right.
it's really, it makes it hard, I guess, to use capitalism as a weapon against people
Exactly.
if they don't buy into that idea anymore.
Exactly.
So
Right.
you're going to hear a lot of argument about that.
Mhm.
And then the next thing that I want to talk about before we can even get to like, here's how to manage some of these things. You have to look at how you are at calling in support.
Great point. Great point.
Like, don't even bother getting to like a list of things to do. Like, yes, do yoga if you can. But like,
Yeah.
but before you even try,
Mhm.
you got to look at this because it will sabotage every single thing that you try to do if you don't have an understanding of this for yourself.
Right.
And you want to look at it, and I'm going to explain what I mean by it in a second, but you really want to try to look at it with the least amount of judgment of yourself as possible.
Mhm.
You kind of want to just like observe, like take stock in like, how am I doing in this
Mhm.
department? What's challenging? What kind of stories have I created that make it hard for me to call in support?
Right.
Okay. So there's all different ways to call in support.
Mhm.
There's the actual support of people.
Mhm.
Like, hey, could you help me with this?
Right.
Okay, so maybe that is a therapist. Maybe that is buying an app that has breathing exercises for you to do. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's calling in the money to be able to go to the gym.
Yeah. It
Or
could
get a
even be like
massage.
literally just allowing help. Like I'm thinking about like if someone's having a challenging time at work or
Mhm.
like a work project or something coming up, but like if you're not willing to delegate, or if you're at
Yes.
home and you're trying to like make your home more
Mhm.
calm and peaceful,
Mhm.
but you're not willing to allow help in that,
Mhm.
it's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yes, because you're blocking
Exactly.
that support. Because, like in the point that you're making, support is more than just like being able to either hire someone or pay for some sort of tool, right?
Yeah.
It's also like, what is your relationship with help in general?
Correct.
I mean, I hate it.
Right. I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, me too. I would say I have a very complicated
Mm-hmm.
relationship with allowing support.
Yeah, same.
And if you too suffer from that,
Mhm.
call this 1-800 number. No.
Right.
If you also suffer from that, you also struggle with manifesting.
Correct.
So you can
We
make
do.
it as like everyday normal as like, can you ask a therapist for help? Or
Mhm.
you could even say like, can you ask the universe to send you a sign? Like, it's all the
Right.
same energy. It's all the
Mhm.
same story. It's all the same vow. It's all the same block.
Mhm.
So that relationship is so important when it comes to dealing with a challenge.
Mhm.
Because if you are somebody who is like me, and I mean, you're getting better, but I would also put you in this
Mhm.
category, who I would prefer to deal with the challenge myself,
Same.
even if it was harder,
Yeah.
than to have another person witness me or perceive me in a vulnerable state.
Oh, 100%.
It really, like, I don't care how hard the thing is, that seems like a way easier mountain to climb than to have to deal with somebody seeing me vulnerable.
Struggle. Right. I agree.
That's a very, very difficult thing for me. It's a very, very difficult thing for you. And it's not because, like, upon birth, a witch hexed us. I mean,
I don't
I
think
think
so.
they might have, but not for this, right? Like, it's the circumstances of growing up. It's what you've attached your worth to. It's
Mhm.
how comfortable you are and how safe being vulnerable in front of people is. It's your definition of vulnerability. Like, it's
Mhm.
all of these things that are playing a part.
Right.
And I see the other side of the coin too, where people don't have enough belief in themselves to
Correct.
get through something, where they're just sort of like, handing everything off, or
Yes.
I don't think delegating is the right word there, but sort of like over handing away responsibility and not taking charge and
And
even
taking ownership.
taking ownership and accountability, and not even being able to also feel the good parts of that. Like,
Right.
it's really nice to be like, hey, I got through that, or I did this thing,
Yeah.
but they're giving that away. So
Right.
really looking at where you fall in that spectrum and the stories you have attached to it, and really looking at your relationship to the word safety
Mm-hmm.
in that.
Yep.
And if you're like us and it's not super safe for people to see you needing assistance, see you needing help, fill in the blank how you want to.
Mhm.
It's just about working on that. It's about understanding why.
Mhm.
It's valid, whatever the reason is. I know it isn't true.
Right.
These stories that we create aren't
Right.
true, but they're very
They're
valid.
Yeah.
And they're very real to you and to your ego. You got to remember your ego's job is to keep you safe.
Mhm.
And that's what it's trying to do.
Right.
It's just that it's categorized a situation as unsafe that I think unfairly got put there.
Yeah. It just took it a step too far.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's really about looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say do a little challenge to yourself where the next time you need help with something, even something small,
Mhm.
challenge yourself to ask for it and see what like the range or the journey of emotions are
Mhm.
that do that. One thing that I have to ask for help with a lot is that I have to ask people to open things for me a lot.
Oh, okay.
So I've got two troublesome things, three troublesome things going on, especially like a jar of pickles or something.
Mhm.
And there's something about like some inner feminists in me is like really pissed that she has to ask for help. But so I've got the fact that I have very small hands.
Mhm.
I've got the fact that I am incredibly hypermobile. So
that's true.
having strength in a joint like that is tough.
Tough.
And then I also have this like crazy thumb injury.
That's true.
So if you stack all of those things
Mhm.
together, even attempting to open something where I have to like screw it off is a nightmare. It hurts.
Literally.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very physically
Yeah.
painful. So I have to ask constantly. Now I live in a home with three other males.
Correct.
So I'm always like, can you open this?
Okay,
It
yeah.
drives me. Now it's so small. None of them mind. In my experience, most of them are like happy to show off their
Yeah, of
strength
course.
in opening something. It grinds my gears every time, but I really try to take it as a moment of like, this is safe.
Right.
These people are happy to help. This is taking a second out of their
Yes.
day.
Right.
Right. But like, it's those little places that if you start to catch it and start to work on it,
It's
it
a
will
great
help
starting
you.
point.
Yeah. How about you? Do you have everyday things that get you stuck?
I mean, I've had a hard time in my like my muggle job with just like my everyday job, just having to ask for help.
Yeah.
And then my one boss, I'm very comfortable asking for help.
Hmm.
But making mistakes is a real problem for me. And so then there becomes this push and pull of, do you ask for help
Mhm.
and avoid the mistake?
Mm.
Or do you keep all of the control, don't ask for help, but then roll the dice on the mistake?
Yeah.
You know
And
what I mean?
and having somebody else catch that you made a mistake.
Yes.
It's horrifying.
Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
it was a sort of a tough learning curve internally.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else realized that, but like I have made huge strides in being
Yeah.
like, hey, can you explain this to me again?
Yeah.
Hey, I don't get this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was tough for a while.
And not to sound like a 90s motivational speaker, but that's everything that you decided this is challenging for me.
Right.
So I'm going to take this opportunity to work on it and become, I don't want to say better at it, but to have more ease at it, because I bet nobody knew you were not doing good at it.
No.
That was internal.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to make that something that you can do with more ease and more
Right.
comfort, like every time you do it, to walk yourself through that. Most people don't do that.
Right.
But that's everything, because
Mhm.
then it becomes easier everywhere else.
Exactly.
So as frustrating as the spiral staircase we talk about all the time is, that you're kind of always dealing with these same issues from a different
right. Going
perspective.
up and up. Right.
It's like if you do deal with them in these little ways, when you're dealing with them from these other angles, you have these sort of built-in pathways in your brain to be able to handle them better.
Right. And then you can apply it in all different places.
Exactly.
The more comfortable your brain is.
And your brain gathers evidence that it's safe.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I think that's a big deal.
Mhm.
So I want to just emphasize that when you're thinking about how you deal with challenges, the easiest way to start really like seeing, like observing yourself and like gaining the understanding and the clarity and the knowledge of how that is for you, is to do it in these smaller places.
Mhm.
And not that like the fear of making a mistake at work is small. I don't mean like small to you. I mean like the consequences are small.
Right. It's not life or death.
Yes.
I mean, my brain might not know that. It
Oh,
knows
yeah.
it now. It didn't know it. at
Your
first.
nervous system's like hitting the panic button over something
Correct.
small. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But these are the places to do it, because you're telling yourself the same stories in all of these different
places.
situations.
Yes.
There isn't just like, oh,
Yes.
Here it's like this, but over here it's a completely wildly different story.
Right.
It's not.
No.
Some of the circumstances are different,
Right.
but for the most part, you're telling yourself the same thing.
Exactly.
And that is that these certain things are unsafe for you.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm giving examples of smaller things. I will give some bigger ones.
Right.
But I want to talk about how our fears and desires play into this, because if I was going to say, like, let me break down and say, like, here's how to do this, I can kind of give you a little guidance in that direction. So
Okay.
if you can identify your fears and desires, you can kind of use these tools. But I think first we should take a quick little break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back with that.
We'll be right back after this short break. You know what goes great with podcast listening?
A great cup of coffee from a great coffee shop.
Yep, beans roasted in-house, amazing baristas. You know where I'm talking about.
Restoration Coffee. Can we go?
Yes, I need an Americano and maybe a panini too.
Ooh, I need blueberry maple latte and probably a resto bowl.
Ooh, yeah, check them out and visit restoration-coffee.com.
Let's talk about what we're obsessed with this week. So Heather, this week
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with my daughter.
With your daughter.
Ah!
So if you're just listening, she's sharing a chair with me. I forced her.
Yes, Heather and
Um,
Emma are sitting together.
Yes.
Very naturally.
If you're watching, don't we look so natural sitting in this
So
chair
comfortable together?
Yeah. Yeah.
You've heard us reference, if you're a listener of this podcast, you've heard us reference Emma many times, not by name, but by usually say your daughter.
Or I'll say, I know this super intuitive person
Who does this thing?
who does this thing, and it's usually Emma.
It's
I'm
me.
talking about. Yeah.
Someone who has bad boundaries with Faye.
That is not true.
That is so true. That
I've
is
never
the
been described that
truest.
way ever.
And with spirits, you have bad boundaries too.
These are potentially facts about me.
But you actually have something you wanted that we've been discussing over the past few months that I thought would be a great topic. We are obsessed with Emma just in general.
Oh,
But I also
Yay.
thought that this topic that we've been talking about, I thought actually our listeners would find really interesting. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Heather, but she's going to explain to us. And I think you should tell the people about it.
So it is a concept in music theory when analyzing the mainstream, and it's the ebb and flow of pop music. And during times of economic distress or any kind of turbulence in the economy, pop music takes a huge increase on the charts. And this is typically called recession pop. And so this became really popular in like 2008 when the housing crisis struck. And it's been popular. Defining artists would be like Jay-Z, Lady Gaga especially. And we have new artists like Charlie XCX coming out with Brat that really defined this. And so from 2008 to 2014, and then like 2023 to now.
And you've been noticing a trend within the last, like, since this president's term has started, right?
Yes.
Since Trump was elected again, you're noticing this trend coming back, right?
Yeah.
And so what would you say are the songs now that we're hearing that are like indicative of recession pop?
So anything that's super short term and super bubbly is a good like signifier of recession pop. And so Charlie XCX's Brat album,
And Brat, the whole like Brat summer vibe.
Brat Summer, it's all
Right.
very short term. It's very indulgent. It's the idea that everything has to happen now, tonight, and at this very club.
We're
Because the
just
world's going to end tomorrow.
Yeah, we're just having fun. We're forgetting our troubles in the club tonight. That type of vibe
Yeah.
would be recession pop,
Yes.
right?
And so like the resurgence of Lady Gaga's weirdness
Mm.
is a really good indicator of recession pop.
That's what we were talking about, because like Gaga went sort of mainstream, right? Like
Yeah.
like that the Bradley Cooper song, Shallow. Like it was all it
It's
like
gonna be sick in my head.
Oh, forever.
Oh, yeah.
but now she's back with Abracadabra, and it's like more of that sort of like her like made up words that she makes in her songs, you know, like that. You can see that coming back. So like while people are jamming in the car, just know that Emma and I are like, uh-oh, Red alert.
Your house.
Red alert. Red alert.
Eggs.
The recession. The economy's crashing.
And can you talk a little bit about the psychology of why people want that during? Because it just on the surface, it would sound like the opposite of what people would want,
You
right?
think they'd want like sad,
Because it's
maudlin
reflecting
music.
what they're
Right.
feeling. So can you talk a little bit about why that happens?
People love escapism.
Right.
That's why books got so popular. Book talk really took an increase.
Mm.
And all of these methods of
It's dragon
escaping
books.
modern life become super popular.
Right.
And so the idea of letting it all loose
Mhm.
and going crazy and having like these one night like standouts
Mhm.
are become really popular.
Right.
Because it's a way of just releasing all the tension in your body physically through dancing and mentally through like drugs,
Drinking and drugs and right.
and it's just a way of leaving like the monotonous modern life.
And also, I think we should add that like another layer on top of that is that the capitalist machine
Mm-hmm.
knows this, and so then they start pumping forward. Like it's almost like a, wouldn't you say it's like a form of propaganda, sort of like
Yeah.
that they use. They like you couldn't say that like record companies don't know this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Or that they don't have astrologers on
Well,
their staff.
right, that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like capitalism plays into this. Like
Yeah.
it feeds that numbing out, that sort of like bread and circus
Yeah.
distraction. Like they want us distracted. They want us numbed out and like doing like having that kind of energy.
Absolutely. And that's why this like indie sleaze archetypes comes forward. And it's like men in loose ties and business suits with 14 cigarettes in their mouth and their ears. And it's like
in their ear.
in their ears. Because everyone smokes with their ears. And it's like, oh, he's a businessman, but he's so sick of it. And now he's like
Right.
gone crazy. He's gone slack.
Right. Like Wall Street is like burnt him out and now
Mhm.
he's loosening his proverbial tie.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like that sort of energy that we're seeing
Yeah.
coming back.
It sort of reminds me of why we like TV shows, like the medical dramas that they play, where like
Yeah.
that's how we wish doctors were, and like
Mhm.
Right.
it's and like, but we all watch it even though it's so inaccurate
Right.
to
Yeah.
what actually
Right.
happens. It's sort of that same like human desire to like create that ideal
Yep.
world
Mhm.
and like the escapism that you're talking
Yeah, just
about.
want to tap out.
But I don't think people are super aware of why they're drawn to it and what's going on.
No.
So I think it's important to know and to see the trends. And I
See
think
the patterns, right?
I think you see it like in fashion too. We talked about
Mhm.
how on an episode about like makeup trends follow,
Yep.
things like that. Like and don't think that
Or-
the capitalistic people don't know
Clock
this and
that.
plant this for you
No.
for their own gain.
Just like you see the resurgence of low-rise jeans.
oh
Mhm.
God.
And so you're forcing women who feel like they have to keep up with that. They have to start starving themselves.
Mhm.
What happens when a woman is starved?
Yeah.
Her brain doesn't work. She can't speak up. She can't fight. She
Harder
can't
to fight
punch
Nazis.
Nazis in the street
But
if
also,
she's starved.
with heroin chic coming back, it's the idea that you should be super skinny and super itsy bitsy small
Mm-hmm.
because you can't afford to eat.
Mm.
Recession. See,
Why would-
recession diet. Exactly.
It's like you should be super small and skinny, but that's also just because you can't afford anything else.
Right. And so it like masks the fact that like our country isn't taking care of
Mhm.
us. And we attribute it to like wanting to be skinny and not
Mm.
wanting to eat.
You just can't afford
It's not that you
protein.
actually can't afford a dozen eggs.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Like I did it on purpose.
Right.
Mhm.
This is totally intentional.
Yeah.
I totally
Right.
starved myself on purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's
Thank you,
all really
Emma.
interesting. I think like the sociology of why these kinds of trends happen is a fascinating
Mhm.
topic. And I love that youths such as yourself
Youths.
are like paying attention and learning about this and talking
Yeah.
about it. I
Yeah,
think it's
it's
really
like-
important.
The more you know. You know what I mean? Like if you know this is playing out and
Yeah.
you know why it's playing out, then it's easier to resist these machines that are at play.
So do you guys have like a favorite escapism song right now?
I mean, Abracadabra by Lady Gaga
Is that
my
yours?
jam currently.
You've always been a monster.
I am.
How about you?
That's a great question. I think one of my picks is actually from 2008 with
Oh,
the original
You
one.
bring it back.
I'm
Bring back the,
going
the
old
other
school.
recession.
I'm going the first recession. And it's the Usher song where he's like, I can't afford my rent.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
super cool.
yes.
That's
He's
a good song.
I work my ass off.
That's not
I
Usher,
still
That's not
get
Usher
paid,
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. But that song is. That song
I was
is.
only like 2.
You were
Yeah,
too.
she was a baby.
That is a recession pop song.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Mhm.
And he spends his rent at the club.
But I'll pay. I can still be at this club though.
See,
Will we
Now
get
you know.
copyrighted for that?
No.
No.
Oh, cool.
Well, you didn't sing enough
Yeah.
of it for it to be a problem.
And I was really
Thank you.
pitchy. It's all right.
Mine is, I mean, not as dated as yours, but Pink Pony Club is still,
Yes.
if I need to forget about
Yes.
everything, I'm going to blast that
That's a
because
jam. Yeah.
to me, that's
agreed.
just like fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good
I
point.
don't actually
Right.
want to go to a club.
No.
Yeah.
I can't stay up late enough for that. But
No.
I
the
do
Pink
like
Pony Club's like
imagining
in my car.
yes,
Mhm.
Yeah,
exactly.
100%.
Exactly. All right.
Thank you, Emma.
Thanks, Sam.
Anytime.
Join us
Welcome.
anytime.
Very excited.
Yeah.
We'll get you your own chair someday. All right, Jay.
Yeah.
Back to being challenged by life.
Okay.
It
What's
does
new?
that.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about how your fears and desires play a big part in how you handle challenges. And again, I don't really like to say handling it successfully or unsuccessfully, but I'm going to use it here. But perhaps like a better way to say it would be like more managed or easily managed than, I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, it feels really judgy. Like if life's throwing a bunch of shit at you, it's normal that you just lay down in the fetal position and say, fuck everything and cry. Like
Yeah.
that's fine.
Right. So like you're going the challenge still exists. What you should be trying to do is not just like have an ego death and like kill your reaction. Like that's not possible. You're not looking to do that.
No.
What you want to do is know yourself well enough
Mm-hmm.
so that when challenges and stresses arise,
Mm-hmm.
you know why your body or your brain or your intuition or your ego are reacting in certain ways.
Yeah, because
It's
then
like-
you fight yourself less.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then, because if you don't understand what your system is doing
Mhm.
and why,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually just adding more challenges on top of the original challenge.
Yes, exactly right.
You know, because then you're like,
Exactly
why can't I handle this? Why is this so hard for
right.
me?
Yeah,
Right? Like you start spinning and you're not even dealing with the original challenge, but it's because you
Yeah.
don't know. But like you and I have done enough work that like if we start to spiral about something or something's hard, we're like, oh, hold on. That's my abandonment trigger. That's my fear of being perceived. That's
Yeah.
my, like you can identify these issues and then you can keep going at the actual challenge.
it's almost like you knew what my wrap up to the whole episode sentence was going to be.
I'm
And-
sorry.
No,
I stole it.
No, but then well, it's like you're intuitive or something. It's really the secret is to know yourself.
Right.
100% of the time. I
Right.
don't care what the challenge is. It's like if I know myself and I know what I need in a situation, what I struggle with in a situation, the stories I'm going to tell myself in a situation, the weird shit I'm going to do in a situation. We're going to talk
Right.
about that too.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Mhm.
If I have an understanding of that, then I can navigate better whatever is being
Correct.
thrown at me.
Right.
But it's when we sort of avoid that like self-knowledge and we don't understand ourselves and we just do a 10-step program or we
Right.
just think I'm going to shame myself for not always being in a state of perfect zen or
Right.
whatever we're doing, that these things become way harder than they have to be.
Right. You're
So-
just compounding the issue.
Yes, exactly. So I want to start by talking about certainty and variety.
Mhm.
Now, we have many
Many
episodes
episodes.
on the human desires and the fears. You can listen to them. They're
Mhm.
great. Please go listen to them. But among them are certainty and variety. And everybody has all of them.
Mhm.
Okay. Everybody wants both certainty and variety. It's why humans are so complicated.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But everyone with certainty and variety, and these are the only two that this is applicable to, everyone has one that's the main.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're either more of a certainty person or more of a variety person. And it's really just in your wiring, it's in your makeup.
Right.
There's definitely like a nature versus nurture element to it.
Mhm.
We've talked about that. You can go listen if you want to, but
Mhm.
it all mixes into who you are.
Right.
And so something that I think maybe, I don't want to say it's not talked about because it's definitely not talked about unless it's you and I talking about it, but maybe it's not, the dots aren't connected, is that
Mhm.
like certainty people, for example, find regulation in routine.
Yes.
Okay. Same as the word grounded. We have an episode on being grounded.
Mhm.
Spoiler alert if you didn't listen to it. It is the same exact thing as being regulated.
Yes.
Regulating your nervous system and grounding are
The
just
same.
two different terms for the same thing.
Right.
Okay. So certainty people have regulation in routine. So when change comes, so like a challenge comes that creates change, a certainty person is going to feel out of control,
Mhm.
which is unsafe to certainty people. Okay.
Right.
Feeling out of control is unsafe. It's why we want all the certainty. It's why we think about all the stuff. It's why we read the menu before we go to the restaurant and Google screenshot map stuff like where the parking is.
Right.
We don't want to be surprised. We
Right.
want to be certain and know what's going on
Yep.
because we like to be in control.
Mhm.
That's what certainty people are. Something that I find interesting, and tell me if people know this, because in my brain, I think I figured out that they don't.
Okay.
Okay. Certainty people have a lot more desire involved in their routines and everyday tasks than variety people do.
Yes.
Okay. So if you are a certainty person and like you love like a ritual,
Mhm.
like me, and I don't just mean like the woohoo rituals, I just mean like
Right.
like a literal like this is
Yes.
how I do this every
Yes.
day.
Right.
There is a lot of desire built into that. So for example, something that involves a lot of executive functioning that I think people don't realize is like taking a shower.
Yes.
I know you realize it, Jamie.
I do realize it.
Okay. In doing that, I very much have a ritual around
Mhm.
taking a shower, getting ready, getting dressed. Like all of that
Mhm.
stuff is very ritualized for me. And the reason that all these ritual things are built into it is because it creates a lot of desire. Like, oh, I like listening to my book while I
Right.
take a shower. I
Mhm.
really like the way this certain lotion is and this certain aloe is. And like
Got it.
all of this stuff builds a lot of desire into what I'm doing. Now, a variety person, such as yourself, Jamie, tell us how much you think about or how much desire is involved in you doing something like showering and getting ready.
None.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that a lot of the things that you were listing, I do. Like
Yeah.
a lot of those certainty things, like I'll check for parking. I'll do all those things you said.
Yeah.
But I do not do them because they make me feel good or they create desire or no, they're the ritual of it. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it to avoid feeling anxious or like to avoid being late or to avoid whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
So like, I know that like doing those sort of certainty-esque behaviors
Mhm.
will pay off in the long run, but
Yes.
I'm not doing them because I like to do them. I
You're
would
not
rather
doing-
not. I would rather not check for parking. I would rather not. I'm like making myself do it.
You aren't doing it to regulate your nervous
No.
system. You're doing it to probably avoid being vulnerable somewhere.
Yes.
Okay. And those
that deregulates my nervous system,
Yes.
having to build those things in because I want to just go to the place. I don't want to
yes.
check the menu and check the parking and find out the meter paying app, and I don't want to like do all those things.
Right.
But I know as an adult, it took me a while to get here. But like I know that those will help me in the long run, but they don't make me feel regulated.
There's no desire involved in that.
no, and that's
for you.
probably what creates like that anticipatory anxiety for me.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So if we look at the variety people, for variety people, that change in routine or that like new thing being thrown in
Mhm.
is stimulating. To a certainty person, it's dysregulating.
Right.
To a variety person, it's stimulating.
Yes.
Okay? Because our brains are wired differently.
Right.
We're not all the same.
Right.
Can you believe that?
Yes.
Even though we're women?
It's true.
Oh
It's
my
true.
God, it's shocking. So when they'll find like the bigger picture things will be more difficult. Like, so for example, something like every day
Mhm.
when after you get out of the shower, Jamie, I want you to put lotion on your body. Okay. To a variety, I just hit the microphone because I get excited about it. To a variety person,
No.
that starts to sound terrible because it becomes this big picture thing I have to do every day. It becomes pressure. And you realize that there's this thing I have to do every day that's not going to stimulate me.
Mhm.
Okay. To a certainty person, they're like, oh my God, and then my legs will feel better and my skin
No.
will feel like this. And there's desire involved. To a variety person, there
Mhm.
is not desire involved. And I
Right.
think if you try to judge them both the same, that's so ridiculous. It
Yeah,
doesn't make
it's
any
not fair,
sense.
right.
It's not. Okay.
Right.
But variety people are so much better in the moment they're in.
Mhm.
Like that's where variety people excel. like they're so present. They are present in a
Mhm.
way that, as somebody who is not a variety person, I look at and I feel like envy for. Like they're in the moment, they're in
Mhm.
so fully. And I'm not
Right.
saying that they're always enjoying it or not anxious in that moment, but they're experiencing that moment,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And they're going to excel in it. Like I see variety people like you, like something happens and your reaction to it is so quick
Mhm.
and so in it and so on it and so ready. Whereas like a person like me who's like control and certainty is going to stop and like, whoop, I'm disrupted. Now I've got to regulate. Now
Right.
I've got to like, do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Process. Yeah.
it's really very different. And again, if you throw something at a variety person and a certainty person, like a challenge, and like judge them the same in how they
Mhm.
handle it, that's ridiculous.
No, it's not gonna
That makes
work.
no sense.
Right.
Yeah. So I like the routine example because I think it just works. But like creating routine feels unsafe to variety people because they know they will not be stimulated.
Mhm.
Okay. So as a certainty person, I'm going to give you an example of this.
Okay.
Because I have experienced it before. Because again, it's not like, oh, I'm a certainty person, so I never want variety.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Right.
Okay. It's just like the main way that you sort of
Function,
feel safe and
right.
function. Right. When my kids were really little, remember when your kids were like just at the stage where they could like walk around,
Mhm.
but they couldn't like keep themselves safe in a room. So
Right.
you have to be sort of like always watching them.
Mhm.
And the shows that are on TV in the background are like little kid shows.
Yes.
And you can't really look at your phone
No.
and you can't do anything. You can't, so
No.
you're not being stimulated.
Correct.
I really struggled with my kids at that age,
Right.
feeling mentally well because of that.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you're like physically busy, you're mentally on alert, but you're not stimulated.
There's no
Right.
stimulating. There's
Right.
nothing happening, right?
Right.
And it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy being
No,
with them,
right.
and kids that age are great, but like that's very, very difficult,
Right.
right? So
Mhm.
I try to think of, for a variety person, if I said to you like, hey, every day at this time, I want you to do this, I'm kind of asking them to feel like how I felt
Mhm.
of like the monotony of every day
Mhm.
when my kids were little. So I'm sure everyone has something like that, but you have to think that way. And then vice versa. For a variety person to tell a certainty person to just wing it, you're asking them to be dysregulated.
Right.
So it's like, we have to look at this. So when challenges come in, if you are a certainty person, you are going to file it differently. You are going to act differently. You are
Mhm.
going to deal differently than if you were a variety person. And
Right.
that's why the 10-step programs,
Doesn't
one of
work.
the many reasons
Does
they
not
don't
work.
work.
Right.
Okay. So if you add in your main fear to this, I
Mhm.
just have to give another example because I think it's funny.
Oh.
It just popped into my head really quick. And
What?
I just thought of it. If you're not sure if you're a certainty or variety person, this is my favorite example of us. It's like, what's your makeup routine like?
Oh, Heather.
Okay, I'm going to tell you.
Called out.
I'm going to tell you two scenarios. One of us has a fancy vanity that is very well organized, very efficient, with like stacked in order, bottom to top, the steps that you quickly do and the tools that you quickly grab with a mirror that lights up.
Nice lights. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. The other one has a bag of makeup in their car.
Yeah.
Both work perfect. Your makeup
It
looks
literally
flawless.
wouldn't work. It literally wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. I
No.
wouldn't do it.
No, and if my makeup was
It
in the
would
car, I would
fucking-
fall apart. I wouldn't be able to function.
It would blow up my fucking day if I
Yes.
had to do my makeup at home. Don't tell Carmen D. It would ruin my day if I had to like carve in that time to sit down and do that for you. It's a ritual. Clearly,
There's
You're, like,
desire
sitting
involved.
There's lights.
Yes.
It's organized.
Yes.
You're seeing everything in its place. Like if I had to carve that out of my morning,
Yes.
I would be so irritated.
Yes, but you'd be irritated because you're going to have to do something that is not at all stimulating and
No.
involves no desire.
I'd like have to stop,
Yes.
do it,
Yes.
and then re-engage
Right.
with the morning. No.
But the point is, neither one is better than the other
No.
or right or wrong. It's like what works for you.
Yes.
Okay. I had,
I
it's
know,
just the
it's
funniest
valid. No,
example
I
ever
know.
of
I know.
two
A lot
people.
of people, I mean, that might be a sort of extreme variety example. I don't think a lot of people like do their makeup in the car.
I
but-
disagree. I see people doing their makeup in the car all the time. Emma, who is still here in the studio, just raised her hand that she does her makeup in the car.
Because she learned it from watching me. I ruined her. I modeled that for her.
But I even think of like Now think of that situation and say a challenge came up in your day,
Mhm.
right? The same challenge hit both of us and it
Mhm.
involved quickly getting somewhere and being pulled together.
Right.
You would be way more regulated entering that
100%.
situation than I would be.
Yes.
I do my makeup in the car. That's not happening. I'm
No,
just
that's
not doing
easy for me.
makeup.
Yeah.
And then I'm just
Right.
like feeling bad that I didn't put it on. And then
Right.
the whole, if
Feeling
I am
weird,
doing it in
right?
a car, I'm like,
Yeah.
where have I gone wrong in life that I
Right.
have to do my makeup in
And
the
I
car?
don't do it while I drive, by the way, people.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
don't judge.
She's
Don't
safe
send in the
about it.
emails. Jesus.
No, she does it parked in her
Yeah,
driveway
or wherever.
in front of her house.
At the
usually.
bus stop.
At the bus
And
stop.
at the meter on Clarendon
She's
Street.
safely
You never
in
know.
park, not driving, not at a light.
No.
She's right. Yeah. Okay. I just think a lot of people can relate to that because, like,
Yes.
I'm sure people shame people for doing their makeup in the car.
Definitely.
That's ridiculous. You can do
Yeah.
your makeup in the car. I'm impressed.
Doesn't matter.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
You put makeup on, I'm impressed. Jesus. Okay.
I'm functioning in this apocalyptic hellscape. Don't judge me about
I mean,
my
you haven't said
makeup.
that sentence yet, so it had to come through.
makeup
So.
application.
Okay. Let's talk about your main fear because when you're being challenged, you will overcompensate in this direction and you'll spend
Yes.
way too much energy worrying about this
Yes.
instead of the things that would probably serve you and whoever else is being challenged
Correct.
at the time in this situation.
I would also argue that that your fear, if you're not aware of it, would actually has the power to inflate the actual challenge.
100%.
Like I see things that like my coworkers make the same mistake as me and it just rolls off their back
yes.
because it's not, their brain isn't telling them that they're like going to be abandoned and left behind by everyone they know and love.
Right. Because they like
They like
crossing a
misspelled
T or
something on a
something.
publication. Right, exactly.
Right.
So it's like that, like it's actually, it's making the problem worse if you don't understand why your brain is having certain reactions.
100%.
Right.
Okay, so I have an example. So I'll just quickly remind everyone the three fears. They are rejection, abandonment, and fraud.
Mhm.
Okay, being seen as a fraud is probably a better way to say it.
Right.
Okay, so everyone has all of those fears, but everyone has one that is the one that haunts them forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It will
Yep.
never let go, and it's there forever to torture you.
Yay.
Just to put it in an uplifting way,
Right.
right? You have to understand it. You have to know.
Yes, you must.
And the thing that's so interesting is that the story you tell yourself about the challenging thing is a story of your fear.
Yes.
And when people say it's like, oh, how do you tell
Mhm.
people's fears so easily? Like which one is theirs? I think that's hilarious.
Right.
Now I know my brain is wired different. I've been studying
little
human
bit,
behavior
yes.
since I was a child because I
Correct.
wasn't sure I was a human and I needed to fit in. So I do understand that. But
Right.
if you pay attention, it's very
Yes,
easy.
you can start to see it.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a scenario, and then I'm going to tell you basically the story that the three fear groups would create
Mhm.
based on the same exact thing happening to them,
Okay.
and then all three different stories. Okay.
Okay.
So you've made a mistake in a report at work,
Mhm.
and you have been fired.
Oh no, it came true. Oh no.
Okay, Jamie, this isn't real. It's
No.
just an example.
Yes.
Okay. If you are rejection, such as myself, you will create a story about a flaw in your character that caused you to be fired.
Right.
Okay. So because I was too this or too that, or
Mhm.
I wasn't friendly enough, or I was too bossy or
Mm.
whatever, you will create a story that's based in a flaw in your character, creating the problem or having a hand in the problem.
Yep.
Okay. My abandonment friends.
Mhm.
Jamie Hayhurst, Queen of Abandonment over
Yep.
here. Okay. She will create a story, and so will all the rest of you, about the actions you took that caused the problem.
Yes.
So you didn't do this perfectly, or you did this
Yes.
too much, or this wasn't exactly right, or the color was off in this thing, or whatever. It will be some sort of
Right.
problem with an action you took.
Why didn't you see this? Why didn't you fix it? If only I had been more aware
Yes.
or observant or whatever.
Yes. So the flaw for you and the story you will tell will be about the actions you took being the mistake, whereas the rejection person is talking about flaws in their character.
Right.
Got it? Okay. Now, our fraud people, okay, their story is going to be about people discovering a flaw in them. Okay. So the
Yep.
story is going to be like, well, I did tell them I was good at this.
Right.
And when I made this tiny little mistake back in 1985.
Yes.
So they must have found out about it. And this
Exactly.
is why. So the same exact thing
Mhm.
happens for the exact same reasons. These are three different stories being told of why.
Yep.
Okay. And all of them are right
Yeah.
because there isn't really a right or a wrong. It's just the
No.
story.
Of your brain, right?
Yeah. So if you understand this, it can help.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you consider your two main desires and you think of them as your coping strategies for these challenges, it's going to help you as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I have another example for you to think of now. Okay. You fell down, Jamie,
Okay.
and you broke your leg.
Oh.
Okay. This is for everybody,
Ouch.
not just Jamie. Everybody. You just fell down and you broke your leg.
Yeah.
Now, your two main desires are going to be the things you now come in to do to cope. Okay. And they're going to show up in the part of the challenge that feels the most unsafe to you. So I will use myself as an example, and maybe you can use yourself afterwards. But if I'm now broken my leg, this is a nightmare, especially if it's broken, because I'm going to have to seek medical professionals' assistance.
True.
I cannot handle this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I probably could, but the repercussions would be too
A
much.
broken leg?
Yeah.
Heather.
I mean, my father once broke his foot and never went to the doctor. So this is not like new in my family.
Oh, it doesn't mean it was
I
a good
broke-
call either. It was
No,
a bad
it's
call.
a terrible call. I've broken bones and literally thought like, I could probably just like
Well, you
bind
also
this
were
up
told
myself.
they weren't broken.
Well, that's true. But you know what I'm saying? The thing is, I think I would rather deal with the physical pain and the like deformity than have to go somewhere and be like, hey guys,
I need help.
I fell over and I'm unable to fix this problem myself. Could someone else come do it
Yes.
instead of helping all these other people?
Mm-hmm.
That's terrible.
Okay.
Immediate no. Immediate, how do I get out of this? Okay.
Okay.
So this fear is coming in. So how am I going to cope, Jamie?
Mhm.
Well, my top two desires are love and connection
Mm-hmm.
and contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who is the nicest patient there? Guess
Oh.
who I'm
Hmm.
hoping the nurses will come in and be like, you were the easiest person I had to deal with today. Oh, thank you for saying that to me. That was so kind. Oh, thank you for that tip on this thing we were talking about. You really contributed to me. This is what I'm doing.
That's
I'm
a great
shucking and jiving
Mm.
and using these things to manage this challenge.
That's a great point.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it's not helping anybody except make me feel a tiny bit better.
Yes. Well, it's telling your ego. It's balancing out those fears to like keep you calm in the moment.
Exactly, because that's what your system's always seeking is
Right,
balance, right?
right.
Your particular form of balance. There's no 50-50 involved here.
True.
It's what you need to
Are
be
used
balanced.
to, right.
So there's this
Mhm.
giant amount of vulnerability involved in that.
Yeah.
So clearly my system's like, let's grab back some control here
Mhm.
and let's use our desires, because there's a lot of fear over there, to like balance this out.
Right.
So we're going to come in and it's like patient of the year came
Yep.
in.
Got
Okay.
it. Yep.
I need the least.
Mhm.
The nurses love me.
Mhm.
I'm really hoping someone will hand me a gold star. It sounds like a joke.
No,
It's not.
it's
I
not.
would if someone
Same.
gave me one and
Yeah.
said like, you are
You're the best
my
patient of the
favorite
day.
patient of
Yeah.
the day, I
Yeah.
would be like, that's right, I am.
Definitely.
Okay. Now I'm guessing yours is similar, Jamie, because we have the same top two desires. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, true. I mean, I would definitely be doing the same thing. I would be like overly thankful and grateful and like planning on writing my nurse a letter about how kind and helpful she was and how she really changed my life.
You write it in
just
your head.
Contributing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
contribution.
Yeah.
But I think when you were talking about it, like, I think I would be worried if I broke my leg, I wouldn't be able to like drive my son to the bus stop. I wouldn't be able to go into work.
Mhm.
So the variety person in me would be like, oh, well, I have a hybrid job, so I can be flexible here.
You would be already
work from
solving
home.
the
Right, I'd be like,
inconveniences to other
exactly.
people.
So I'd be
Yeah.
working. We'll work from home. I'll be explaining it to everybody about why that's okay, and then I would definitely be doing like way more work when I should be resting
To, like, make up for
right,
it.
to make up for like the loss of me not
Yeah.
like being on hand all
For
the
you
time.
having to be like accommodated a bit.
Truly, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Not me accommodating everyone else.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I would, I'd have to make it so super easy on my husband, who would have to do the bus stops, which he's happy to do anyways, doesn't matter. But like,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? I would
Yeah.
be having to make up for that in some way.
One time when I sprained my ankle really bad, it was my right one, and I
Mhm.
had like a whole boot thing on it. I
Mhm.
learned how to drive with my left foot so that I would not have to ask other people to drive.
Heather,
I was pretty good at it too. But I'm just saying this was a while ago
Yes,
too.
right.
I'm not saying I wouldn't do that now. I probably would, but I would ask for more help
I
driving.
would hope so.
Yeah. But
Virtually.
I remember going to a doctor's appointment and the doctor being like, "How did you get here?"
And you're like, oh, I drove lefty.
And he was like, "You know, you need to get like special permission to do that."
Yeah,
and
you're
I was like,
no, I
"Well, I
special.
have a plan if I got pulled over to like whip the boot off my other, I was in one of those air boots and just like put my foot there and they wouldn't know."
Oh God.
How are they gonna know? Who's gonna know? I mean, your rule follower would not do that.
No, right,
Mine,
yes.
my like need to
Yes.
break the rules would, but
Yes.
but the point is that like you're going to frame everything, like you're gonna make things harder for yourself,
Yes.
and you're also gonna spend a lot of energy
Mm-hmm.
trying to make the nurses or whoever think you are the best patient of the day
Right.
and get a gold star
Mhm.
for really nothing except soothing your own system.
Right. Exactly.
So it's okay, but like
Right.
imagine if you don't understand why you're doing that.
Mhm.
Like imagine if you're like, I don't understand why I can't ask this nurse to go get me some water.
Right.
And think like, I'm actually not inconvenienced here. She's not gonna mind.
No. Right.
You know.
Exactly.
How do you ask for water at a restaurant?
I wait for them to come take my order.
No, but like let's say you ran out or you need some.
Oh, I would just wait for them to come. I would ask when they were checking on the table.
And then this is what I say every time. When you get a chance.
Oh.
like as if the
they're
assumption by
like-
me asking is for you to drop everything
And like
be-
it's out of the realm of her job responsibilities
Yeah.
or their job
Yeah,
responsibilities.
right.
Exactly.
Can you give
It's a
me some
huge
water?
ask. Yes.
That's how I say
Yeah.
it every time. I hear it. I know I'm
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah. See, I would never raise my hand and ask.
Oh,
at a restaurant.
God,
I would just
no.
wait till they were checking on the table, and then I would say, "Can I
Same.
have a water?"
Or like catch the eye as
Yeah.
they were going by and do
Right.
like a little aside. By the way, no, I would never. Or like the sign thing that the boomers do to get the check. I would absolutely never do that.
No.
No, the only thing I'm doing as a signal is intense eye contact. I draw the line at anything more than that. Okay, so as you can see, the story that you create around what's happening is a big deal, and so you just need to find ways to understand your own story.
Right.
So I would say, like, think about to yourself in general, what is your story about dealing with challenges?
Mm-hmm.
So some people will say like, "Oh my God, I hate change," and I'm
Mm.
always like, "No, you don't.
Right.
You hate some changes.
Mm-hmm.
You like some changes.
Yeah.
Like if the change surprise thing was like you got
$1 million.
$10,000
Right.
or $1 million, yeah,
Right.
you're shooting higher than me, right? Like you would be psyched about that,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
the changes that suddenly you don't have to do this chore anymore
Right.
because something happened or someone else took it. Like that's a
Right.
great change.
Yeah.
So just be careful making like blanket statements about
Yeah.
yourself like that.
Yeah. I mean, and like winning $1 million, that would cause other challenges. It wouldn't be easy,
Right.
but like you'd be in the frame of mind where that would be okay.
You'd be like
It'd
up for
to
that.
adapt to these challenges.
I'm up for that change
yeah,
and challenge.
I could make this happen.
But needing to ask the waiter or waitress for water
might be a problem.
I don't know if
Right.
I'm up for that. I think I'll just be thirsty the whole time. I'll be parched. It'll be
Dehydrated.
fine. Yeah. So just think about in general how you are with that kind of stuff. I know one of the things that I'll credit myself for
Mhm.
is that like I trust myself in a emergency. Like
Same.
I know that like I'm the person to step to the front and to help or
Mhm.
to run the show, or I know I'm going to handle it well.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it won't be hard or that I won't struggle during it, but I know that about myself.
Right.
I think both of us have had enough of those in our life that
Mhm.
we're like, oh yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I also overly, my therapist says that I struggle from hypervigilance.
No. You don't say.
So like I'm always preparing
Right.
for
Trauma.
some sort of traumatic thing to
Crisis.
happen and knowing what I'm going to do
Yes.
in the instance. I've told the story before
It's
that.
exhausting.
Remember when you had to wait in line to get into grocery stores during COVID?
Oh yeah, I do
Okay.
remember.
So there's only so many people allowed in at
Yep.
a time, and you stood in the 6 foot apart line outside.
Mm-hmm.
I was standing in that line, and I noticed my husband just like staring off into space, and I said to him like, "You don't look at all these people and think like that one might pass out if they do. What should I do? That kid might run into the traffic if they do. What should I do? Like you're not making plans." And he was like,
No.
"No." And I was like, "Oh,
That's interesting. I don't do that either, and I'm a hyper vigilant person either.
Mm.
I only do if there's like the kid. If there's a kid, then I would be like,
your mom vigilance would kick
Yeah.
in." Yeah.
but I'm not waiting for people to pass out.
I think that I'm so in tune
That's
with
the medical
people's
trauma you have.
medical trauma,
Yeah.
but also with like the energy. There's this fine line, and Emma's still in the studio, so I want her to really listen when I say this. There's a fine line
Yes.
between your curiosity
Mhm.
of people's energy and sort of like becoming like obsessive compulsive about all the things around you and hypervigilant about things.
Yes.
And it's really hard to know when you cross
Where the line is, right?
or that there is a line, because like some people, do you know some people can stand in a line and not think about anything? That's weird.
that's
I've
weird.
never had a moment of time in my life
Right.
where I couldn't think of just one thing.
Right.
Can you imagine?
No.
I mean, I can ruminate with the best
With
of
the best
them.
of them, yeah.
But like
Definitely.
there's a lot going on.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So like sometimes you don't realize
Yes.
that you do these things, and that you're, again, like you said, like your trauma from childhood or
Mhm.
something comes up to make you prepared,
Right.
because it feels like control if
Yeah.
you've thought out the scenario. So just keep that in mind.
Yep.
Man. Know
Valid.
yourself, know how you do your stories.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is your story about how you deal with challenges?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have a story.
Well, I think
I
know
mean,
you're good at them.
Yeah,
at
no,
dealing with
I'm good
Yes.
at them. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sort of always just, well, so okay.
Here it is,
Here it
ladies and
is.
gentlemen.
Here it is. Here's the difference. So I'm not hyper vigilant.
Mhm.
I'm just waiting for it to hit me upside like the back of my head. Right. So I like
You're
my,
like bracing.
right, exactly. So my trauma are like unexpected
Mhm.
tragedies,
Mhm.
essentially.
Mhm.
So I'm just waiting for something terrible to happen and to be informed of it.
Because your
Right.
traumatic tragedies, there was nothing you could have
Done. Right.
There was no
Couldn't have
controlling
stopped it.
anything.
Right.
So,
So I need to be able to react,
yeah.
but I don't feel like you do, like
You're
that
not
there's
planning.
like I don't think I can stop it. I just
Oh, yeah.
need to be able to respond to it
Yeah.
quickly,
Yes.
efficiently,
Yes.
and appropriately.
I think somewhere along the line of childhood, I got confused and thought maybe I should think that I was a superhero.
Well, it probably made you feel safe.
I'm sure, but I
Right.
think it was like, well, if Batman was here,
Yeah.
he would be thinking
would do
about these
this,
things.
right.
So like I probably should too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyways, you need to know your story, because
Right.
I do think what you're describing is a form of hypervigilance.
It is. It is.
For sure. And it's sort of like,
It's sort of like like you said, it's a mental and a physical bracing, like
Yeah.
that my body is always
yes.
on alert. I've had to work really hard to get my nervous system to regulate,
Yes.
even though there's like quote unquote nothing happening.
Yeah.
My brain's just waiting. Like,
Yeah, because it's like for you, the thing that's unsafe is being sort of not ready for the thing.
right.
So if you're always ready,
Right.
but then you're just always dysregulated.
Right. That's why I'm like, don't call me.
Oh yeah, because the phone
Don't
ringing, you're
fucking
like
call
pooping
me.
your
The
pants
ring,
about it.
the ringing
Yeah.
of the phone is
Yeah.
like just waiting.
I
Right.
think I've called you like twice in my life,
And
both for emergencies.
Exactly. Literal emergencies. Yes.
If I'm gonna call you and it's a non-emergency, I'm gonna text you
You're gonna be
first.
like, or the first thing you're gonna say is, "Hey, everything's fine."
Everything's fine. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's probably an emergency that I'm saying that too. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And
There's
I
a
say
text
that. I
coming,
say
like,
that to
I'm
my
calling
friends.
you for
Yeah.
this reason.
Right. If I call my friends, they know. Like I'll be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
nothing's wrong," and they're like, "Okay, good."
Yeah.
Okay.
Phew. Yeah. Okay. But I get that's generational too, I think, for
True.
sure. Okay. So here's a few tips.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was weird about the tips,
Well,
but here's
yeah.
a few things. First, be aware that you are creating a story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not true, you're just making it up.
Right.
People don't like that part because it feels very true. I understand that.
Right. Well, like you said, it's not true, but it's valid.
It's valid
to
and
think
it's
that,
real,
but it's
and it's like
right.
it's true in your system.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
your ego and your intuition believe
Mhm.
that this story is valid.
Right.
So you can't just operate in the fact that like, oh, all
It's
these
not.
stories are
Right.
lies, but you
Yeah.
have to remember that you're not creating truths.
Yes.
You know, especially if you have anxiety. I think all the time, like for me, when I have anxious thoughts, it's so easy for me to spot them because they're so wild.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But these stories are not wild.
No.
They feel
Mhm.
very authentic in your system.
Yeah, and the
they're just
more
not.
you worry about things and the more you obsess and ruminate on things, like the more sort of numbed out your brain
Yeah.
becomes to them. So even if they might sound extreme to someone else, but to
Right.
your brain, they sound normal because you're so used to them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Just catch any labels you are creating for yourself,
Right.
because they're probably connected to some story that has to do with you being safe or unsafe.
Yeah,
So
anytime
just
you're
keep
saying
it.
like always or never,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
you know,
That's a vow.
that's a vow.
Yes, exactly. All right. Observe, separate the facts and the emotions in the story you are creating, and try to do it without judging yourself. I know
Mhm.
that's really
It's
hard,
hard.
but like, even just this is helpful when you can say it aloud to somebody else, I think.
Right.
First of all, it's
Mhm.
powerful to say it out loud.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a phone call that you scare everybody, but like it could be. You could text first. But like,
Yes.
do you know what I'm saying? Like, just saying, like, here's what I'm telling myself.
Mhm.
A lot of times we'll do that to each other and we'll both start with like, I know this is ridiculous, but,
Mhm.
and then we'll say the thing.
Right.
And like, just the power of like knowing someone else is going to hear you.
Right.
And having it get out of your brain and into the world.
Yeah.
It really lessens the power that story
Definitely.
has over you, because you hear how silly it is.
Yes,
You know?
exactly. Right.
But try to be like, okay, what is the fact here? The
Mhm.
fact is like, I am good in emergency. I am good when in a challenging situation. I handle that well.
Mhm.
So that's a truth.
Mhm.
Okay. What's not a truth is that it's my job to make sure everybody's okay, or that my worth depends on it, or
True.
the safety of my loved ones who aren't even involved in the challenge is somehow at stake.
Right.
None of
None of
those
that's
things.
true.
Those are stories. So just like separate those things for yourself. It will
Mhm.
make it easier. Look at the stories and find the connections to your own self-worth. So what is connected to your self-worth? Self-worth, as we've talked about many times, is a made-up, silly concept that makes
Mhm.
no sense. But you have stories about what makes you worthy
Yep.
to be loved or connected to other people. So you got to
Yep.
look at what those are.
Mhm.
So for example, me and you both, like being completely capable all the time, is connected to our self-worth.
Right.
That's why people like us,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, but so that could be true. People might like our capability, but for the most part, that's not why people choose to befriend or not befriend us.
No, it's
So you've got to
it's my winning
separate those stories
personality.
out,
It's my shining sense of humor.
and your ability to do makeup in the car.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. And then what can you work on rewriting? It's going to be a work in progress.
Mhm.
You can't just jump from
No.
like this extreme of like, oh, I'm bad in emergency to like I'm amazing in one, or
Right,
whatever. You
whatever,
can't
right.
do that. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I handle challenges with ease when
Right.
they're like really difficult. Like that's not fair. But like, what parts could you start rewriting? A lot of them have to do with your self-worth. Hey, like people don't actually like being loved is not conditional based on
Right.
how well I handle this.
Exactly.
Or if I might need water. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or if these
Exactly.
nurses think I was the easiest patient today. Like
Right.
that's actually not real.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just keeping that in mind. I think a healthy exercise to do, I was going to say to write it down because that works for me. Or you could put it in your notes app. That's what works for Jamie. Some
Mhm.
people just like say it aloud while they're driving. If that works for you, totally fine. But have some sort of record, at least where you can, I think being able to look at it is the most helpful,
Yeah.
where you list out like how you cope, and you have a category for healthy and you have a category for unhealthy. And you're aware, again, you don't have to judge it. You don't have to eliminate everything in the unhealthy side.
Right.
But you just want to be able to recognize, like, am I doing the unhealthy one or the healthy one right
Right,
now? Ooh,
exactly.
interesting. Can I
Just
move away from
awareness.
this? Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe I can, maybe I can't.
Yep.
You know? Like,
Yeah.
that's
I
the
mean,
thing.
awareness is huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Am I going to suddenly, because I'm aware that I'm trying to control everything to make myself feel safe, I'm suddenly never going to try to control anything again? Absolutely not. I'll
No.
still be trying to control everything. If someone said, Heather, you can control the earth spinning if you'd like, I'd be like, that sounds like
Sure.
a job for
Right.
me. That sounds great. Do you know what I mean? Like that's never going to completely change, but I can
Right.
go, I'm safe if I'm not in control. I can work on that.
Right.
Like look at those kinds of things. The shame and guilt stories about how you dealt in the past with stuff are
Mm.
things you want to work on releasing.
Yep.
These are hard.
Mm-hmm.
These are really, really hard because what's happening in a moment when you're being challenged by something, your brain is like filing through this file, and you probably don't have a lot of awareness
Mm-hmm.
of every other time you've been in a situation. It sort of feels like it's similar to this situation
Yeah.
in whatever way it's linked it.
Yeah. It's a very fast process.
It's
Like
instant.
nanoseconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going, well, here's how you fucked up.
Yep.
Here's
Mhm.
where you fell short. Here's
Yep.
where you were too much. Here's all the mistakes you made.
Yep.
And it's doing this to help you,
Right.
believe it or not.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to interpret it that way,
Yes.
especially if you are dysregulated while it's happening.
Right.
Okay. So you just have to start to, when you're in a safe moment, look at that. Like,
Mhm.
hey, this one time I messed up doing this one thing, but like maybe the fact that I messed up and understand it actually could make me better the next time instead of thinking that's something I can never do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
I remember I used to say all the time, like, I can't do crafts. I come from this like line of these crafty women who can like make something out of like a pile of crap that looks like you'd want to
You
buy it
always say
for
that,
$1 million.
yes.
And it's this thing, and it's like this pride in my family line of
Mhm.
women like this. And I remember my grandmother trying to teach me to sew and being like, this is not for you, and being like really devastated, like,
Right.
because this was a thing that like I
Yeah.
saw, right? And
Right.
I admired. And
You wanted to emulate.
I think everyone wants to create in some way, and sometimes we
Mhm.
aren't shown all the different ways to create,
Right.
right? But I realized, I think you had to explain it to me actually, that you can have like motor skills that are really good, but maybe fine motor skills are
Yeah.
more troubling for you. And so
Yes.
like
Yes.
that makes it hard.
Yes.
But I created this idea, and that was before I knew this, that like I don't craft.
Right.
I can't craft.
Right.
I don't enjoy
You just
crafting.
put like a hard stop
Right.
on it. Right.
But then I was like, but like I want to.
Why can't I just like sort of crappily craft?
Yeah.
Or like mid crafting.
Mid craft. That's a great
Yeah.
term. I really love that. Like I could just be mid at this, and that
Right.
would be fine forever. The trouble that we both have is that other people are going to perceive stuff, but you can make shit that no one ever looks at.
Right.
You can. I went to like I did a paint night because I got invited and I wanted to be involved, and I think that's so fun, and I love Bob Ross, and I thought I want to do this, and I knew I was going to be bad at it.
Yes.
And I was. Did I make a lot of self-deprecating jokes the whole time? I
Right.
did. It was not a healthy coping mechanism. It was
Mhm.
one I used. But I did it. And I just learned to like have fun and not have this expectation that I have
Right.
to do it amazing.
But if you know that about yourself, then that makes sense. But if you don't know that, then you're like, why am I on the verge of tears in the sip and paint class?
Exactly.
Like why am I about to like explode in rage?
Yeah.
Like while I'm trying to like crochet.
And you're like looking at the
'Cause you
person
don't
next
know
to
it about
you,
right?
and they're fucking crushing it.
Right.
And they're like a little drunk. And their painting is so good.
Right.
Right. But
Yes.
like there's also the thing of like I think like, oh, I want my kids to see me not just do stuff I excel at.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did it. It was a painting with like there was water and
This was a few
sky.
years ago?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there was
I
boats.
remember.
And like somehow my boats don't look like boats. They look like ninjas rising out of the water
Oh, nice.
accidentally. So we call it the ninja boat painting.
Perfect.
It only made it into my garage. It's not on the main floor.
It's lovely.
But it's there, and every time we walk by it, my kids are like, "Hi, ninjas!" Like it's a joke, and it's like a.
It's a
But
bit.
imagine if I didn't go, and like imagine if I
Exactly,
took
right.
it personal every time
Yes.
instead of just like celebrating the fact that I did it and I had fun, and
Yes.
that's the best I could do. That's
Exactly.
fine.
Right.
That's fine.
Mhm.
But if you don't know, like you said, you're
Mhm.
gonna spend. You're either gonna cut yourself off from doing stuff that you
Right.
might like and experiencing things,
Mhm.
or you're gonna do it and go like, "Why do I suck and that
Right.
person's good?"
This is a terrible time.
Yeah,
Right,
we
exactly.
actually aren't all talented at all the same things,
Exactly.
believe it or not.
Exactly.
Okay. Lastly,
Mhm.
put your focus on adapting, not perfecting anything here, not being like the Miss America pageant winner of challenges,
Right.
but of instead being like really good at adapting.
Yep.
Like the quote that I
Mm.
love so much, like always just try to be a little more comfortable being uncomfortable.
You love
Like
it.
I do, it's my favorite
Mhm.
because it's so true and
Right.
applies to everything. Like we think everything has to be this mountain.
Yes.
we like
Right,
climb
exactly.
to the top
It's
of.
big victory. Right?
Yeah, but maybe it's just a little one. Maybe it's
Right.
just like I was a little bit more comfortable at the sip and paint when my boats looked like ninjas.
Right.
When the first time I tried to paint something and I was bad at it, I had
Really
a complete
bad.
meltdown.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So like finding that. So
Mhm.
it's like if you could just, and this really for any challenge,
Yeah.
if you just like, I'm going to adapt, I'm going to learn something from this.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to move through this with a little more grace and a
Yeah.
little bit nicer to myself as I do. And that's it.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm sure you've tracked this of me, but whenever I talk about something like responding to a challenge or an upset or something, I always say like 6 months ago, this would have been a problem. Or
Yeah.
5 years ago, no way.
Yeah.
But like, I always try to like create some sort of relativity
Yeah.
so I can see like how much I've grown. So even though this sucks in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm doing okay with
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
You're using growth, one of the
Right.
human desires, to cope.
Right.
You're going, look at that. But, you know, it's also like, would you want to be the same version of yourself you were 6 months ago?
No.
I don't even want to be the same version of myself I was last week.
Right. Yeah, keep going.
So
Right.
it's just like, and it isn't because like you're better at something or you were worse at something. It's just that you've adapted better
Right.
to the, do you want to say the hellscape thing?
The apocalyptic hellscape that we're living in.
You've adapted
Yes,
better.
exactly.
Good
Right,
job.
exactly.
I'm
Doesn't
so
mean it's
proud of you.
okay. Doesn't mean we're submitting, but you just have, like, you're coping and you're
Yeah.
moving through it.
I think
Right.
whenever you're facing challenges, especially like big ones that maybe kind of feel traumatic that you're sort of trudging yourself through, there's sort of this process, and it's similar to like in our grief episode, like the grief cycle, right? And the things that you go through where at first you're like, I don't want to. I completely reject having to deal with it. Like I absolutely not, right? There's the denial.
Yeah.
But then you sort of start accepting it and going like, okay, how do I like pull myself up out of this hole
get
and like
together.
figure it out and move forward. And when you get there, if you can just like adapt and you can go like, how do I excel here? Where am I going to struggle here? Where do I need support? Like, how is that process going to be for myself? If you can do that, then it's going to make a world of difference.
Absolutely.
So is there a 10-step guide to exactly how to handle challenges? No. The trick forever is to just know yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Myself that I know really well needs some more coffee. So I think we should go do that.
All right. Hey everyone, Heather and I have an ask for you. If you love this episode or if you love the IGG, can you do us a favor? We need you to go onto whatever platform you listen on and download, subscribe, like, love, whatever it's asking you to do. Can you go do those things for us on the platforms that you listen on? It would mean so much to us.
Thanks for listening to our episode. For a way to get in touch with us, please visit our website, intuitivegirlsguide.com. We love hearing your feedback on our episodes.